Today we're going to practice or review how to borrow when we're subtracting. So we have to know when we need to and when we don't need to. Common mistake for students is to want to borrow when you don't have to borrow, or forgetting to borrow because it seems so easy to just subtract the larger from the smaller number. So let's take a look at a couple practice problems. So for a problem like this, 562 minus 355, we know we're going to start over here in the ones column first, and we have 2 minus 5. Now it's easy to want to think, oh, well, 5 take away 2 is 3. But that's not what's happening here. We have 2 on the top, and because it's smaller than the one on the bottom, we have to borrow. Now we know we always go to the left of the number, so right next door, and we borrow a value of 10. Every time you go over one number, it's a value of 10 that you're borrowing. So we're going to borrow from the 60, which is 6, and now make it 5, which then puts 10 now with the 12, with 2 to make it 12. Now I have 12 minus 5, and when you're subtracting, if you don't know it offhand, you can always count up, starting with 5 up here and saying 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 to get 7. Now the question is, do we have to borrow again? And a lot of times people will automatically want to just keep borrowing, but double check. 5 and 5, we can subtract that. They're the same. 5 minus 5 is 0. Our last column, the hundreds, 5 minus 3 is 2. So our answer, 207. Now for the second problem, starting off on the ones place, 6 is actually bigger than 5. So we don't have to borrow at all. We can just go ahead and do 6 minus 5 is 1. Well, then when we get to the middle column, the tens, I notice that 6 is smaller than 7. So we're going to have to borrow. And borrowing from the number to the left. So we're going to borrow from the 5. So it's now a value of 4. But again, every time you go over to borrow, you're borrowing 10. So we're going to bring back 10 to our 6, and now we have 16. All right? So now we're doing 16 minus 7. Once again, you can think 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16 to get 9. And then 4 minus 3 is 1. Now the last example is when we have a 0 involved. And this is where I see some students have the most trouble knowing what to do or remembering the process. I think it's because teachers teach it so many different ways. So again, you want to find the one that works best for you. We know we can't do 2 minus 5 because the 2 on top is smaller than the 5 on the bottom. So we have to borrow. But we go to borrow from 0 and there's nothing there. So we have to borrow from the 5 all the way over. Okay? So we're borrowing from the 5, which now becomes 4. We're taking a value of 10, right? So with my 0, 10 more makes it 10. Here's the part that students tend to forget, is that we now that 0 has some value, it has 10, we're going to borrow from that 10. So it's no longer 10, it's now 9, so that we can take a value of 10 over to the 2. And now our 2 is 12. All right? So once again, we went to borrow from 0, nothing was there. Borrowed from 5, made it 4. Our 0 that was 10 then became 9, so that we could then have 12 on the end. Okay? So 12 minus 5, again counting up, we would get 7. 9 minus 7 is already set. We can do subtract and hit 2. And then 4 minus 3 equals 1. Okay? So 3 very different situations for borrowing. This is the only one that we had to skip over to borrow. The rest, we just looked at what number we had and had to decide if we needed to borrow again. So I'm going to put up two problems here that I want you to try on your own. All right, the first one, 763 minus 582. And the second one, 703 minus 588. Okay? So I'll let you know either in your assignment or in the description box what I want you to do as far as how to turn these in to me so I can see what you've done. It could be you write them out on paper and send it to me as a picture message, or it could be you recording yourself doing them. Again, it'll be written in your assignment or in the description below.